I discovered my wife had been stealing from our kids for years. Her confession left me speechless and our family in unrest. I, 35M, have been married to Carla, 33F, for 6 years now. We have a blended family. I have a son, Johnny, 16M, from my previous marriage, and Carla has twin daughters, Kim and Zoe, both 14F, from her previous relationship. Our story began about 8 years ago when we met at a local community center. I was there for a single-parent support group, still struggling to adjust to life as a divorced dad with a young son. Carla was volunteering, helping to organize activities for kids. Her warm smile and gentle way with the children caught my attention immediately. At first, we were just friends. We'd chat during the meetings, sharing stories about our kids and the challenges of single parenthood. Carla told me about her ex-husband, who had left her when the twins were just toddlers. I shared my own story of a marriage that had crumbled under the weight of conflicting career ambitions and growing apart. Over time, our friendship deepened, and we started dating. When we first got married 2 years later, I was filled with hope and excitement about our families coming together. Johnny was 10 at the time, a bright and curious kid who loved sports and video games. The twins, Kim and Zoe, were 8. Kim was the outgoing one, always ready with a joke, while Zoe was quieter and more introspective, often lost in a book. I imagined us as one big, happy family, supporting each other and creating new traditions together. But over the years, things haven't turned out the way I hoped they would. The main issue has been the relationship between Carla and Johnny. From the beginning, they've had trouble connecting. Johnny struggled with the changes in our family dynamic. He missed the one-on-one time we used to have and felt overwhelmed by suddenly having 2 younger sisters. Carla tried to bond with him, arranging family game nights and trying to engage with his interests, but Johnny always saw her attempts as trying to replace his mom or control him. I remember one incident about a year into our marriage that really highlighted the problem. Johnny had a big soccer game, and Carla had promised to attend. She had been making an effort to be at all his events, just as she did for the twins. But that day, Zoe came down with a bad flu, and Carla had to stay home to take care of her. Johnny was devastated. He scored the winning goal, but instead of being excited, he was angry that Carla wasn't there. When we got home and I tried to explain, he lashed out, saying, "She doesn't really care about me. She only pretends because of you, Dad." That moment stuck with me. I tried to mediate, to help them understand each other, but it always felt like walking on eggshells. As Johnny got older, things didn't improve much. He and Carla maintained a polite but distant relationship. There were good moments, like when Carla helped Johnny with a science project and they actually worked well together, but these were few and far between. On the other hand, I got along well with Kim and Zoe. We bonded over shared interests in sports and movies. I taught Kim how to ride a bike and helped Zoe build her first computer. These moments of connection sometimes made Johnny feel left out, which only added to the tension. Carla and I tried to address these issues. We had countless late-night discussions, trying to figure out how to bring the family closer together. We even tried family counseling for a while, but Johnny was resistant, and we eventually gave up. Last week, things came to a head. It was spring break, and all the kids were home from school. Johnny had been saving up to buy a new gaming console for months. He had been doing odd jobs around the neighborhood, mowing lawns, walking dogs, even tutoring younger kids in math. Every time he earned money, he'd proudly show me how his savings were growing. I was impressed by his dedication and work ethic. Finally, after months of saving, he had enough money to make the purchase. He ordered it online and was eagerly waiting for the delivery. The day it was supposed to arrive, I had to work late. I got a text from Johnny around 4 p.m., saying his console had arrived and he was excited to set it up. I promised to help him when I got home. When I finally got home around 8 p.m., I found a scene I never expected. Johnny was in tears, pacing in the living room. The twins were huddled on the couch, looking scared and confused. And Carla was standing in the kitchen, looking stressed and defensive. It took a while to piece together what had happened. It turns out that Carla had taken Johnny's package without his permission and driven to the next town over to return it. Her reasoning? She thought Johnny was spending too much time gaming and not enough on his studies. She claimed she was doing what was best for him. Johnny was beyond devastated. This console represented months of hard work and delayed gratification. He felt violated and angry that Carla had taken something that belonged to him without even discussing it first. As he recounted what happened, his voice shaking with anger and hurt, I felt a mix of disbelief and fury rising within me. I turned to Carla, demanding an explanation. She defended herself, saying she was just trying to be a good parent and look out for Johnny's future. She mentioned that Johnny's grades had slipped a bit last semester and she was worried that more gaming would only make things worse. She said she left a note explaining her decision, but Johnny said he never saw any note. The argument escalated quickly. Carla accused me of always taking Johnny's side and not supporting her parenting decisions. She brought up times when she felt I had undermined her authority with the twins. I reminded her that while I appreciated her input, major decisions about Johnny's life needed to be discussed with me first. I pointed out that taking someone's property without permission was not okay, regardless of the intention behind it. As we argued, I could see the twins shrinking back, looking scared. Johnny had stopped crying and was now just standing there, a look of bitter resignation on his face. I realized that this fight was hurting all of our children and tried to calm things down. But Carla was too upset. In the heat of the moment, she packed a bag and left, saying she needed some space to think. She's been staying at her sister's house for the past 3 days. Since then, our home has felt like a war zone. The twins are confused and upset, torn between missing their mom and feeling angry on Johnny's behalf. They've been quieter than usual, whispering to each other and giving Johnny sympathetic looks. Johnny has retreated into himself. He spends most of his time in his room and barely speaks to anyone. When I try to talk to him, he just shrugs and says he's fine, but I can see the hurt in his eyes. I'm trying to keep everything together, but I'm struggling. I've had to take time off work to be home with the kids. I'm cooking meals, helping with homework, and trying to maintain some sense of normalcy, all while grappling with my own feelings of anger and betrayal. I love Carla, and I know she loves our family. We've been through a lot together, from merging our families to supporting each other through job changes and health scares. But I can't help feeling that she crossed a major line this time. Her actions have not only hurt Johnny but have shaken the foundation of trust in our family. Part of me wonders if this is just the culmination of years of unresolved tension between Carla and Johnny. Maybe we should have tried harder with the family counseling, or found better ways to help them connect. But another part of me feels that regardless of past issues, what Carla did was simply wrong. I'm torn about how to move forward. Do I stand firm in my belief that Carla was completely out of line? Or do I try to see things from her perspective and find a middle ground? How do I support Johnny and help him process this betrayal? And what about the twins, caught in the middle of all this conflict? I feel like I'm failing as both a husband and a father. I want to protect my son, support my wife, and keep our family together, but right now, those goals seem mutually exclusive. Any advice on how to navigate this situation would be deeply appreciated. How do I move forward and repair the damage this has done to our family? Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. Your perspectives really helped me gain some clarity on the situation. After Carla left, I spent a few days focusing on the kids. I had long talks with each of them, trying to understand their feelings about the situation. Johnny was still angry but also worried that he had caused the family to fall apart. I reassured him that none of this was his fault and that it was okay to feel hurt and angry. During our talk, Johnny opened up about how he's felt since Carla came into our lives. He admitted that he sometimes missed the times when it was just the two of us, and that he felt like he had to compete for my attention now. It was a breakthrough moment. I realized I had been so focused on trying to make our blended family work that I had overlooked Johnny's need for one-on-one time with me. The twins were conflicted, missing their mom but also understanding why Johnny was upset. Kim, usually the more talkative one, was uncharacteristically quiet. Zoe, on the other hand, surprised me by expressing her feelings clearly. She said she loved her mom but thought what she did to Johnny was wrong. It was a mature perspective that made me realize I had underestimated how much the girls understood about the situation. About 5 days after she left, Carla reached out and asked to meet. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop in town where we had our first date. It felt strange to be sitting across from her in the same place where our relationship began, now grappling with the biggest crisis of our marriage. The conversation was tense at first. Carla looked tired and stressed, and I felt a mix of anger and concern seeing her. But we managed to talk things through calmly. Carla admitted that she had overstepped her boundaries with Johnny. She explained that she had been feeling increasingly frustrated with what she perceived as Johnny's lack of focus on his studies. Then she revealed something that shed new light on her actions. Her own parents had been very strict about academics when she was growing up. They would often take away her possessions as punishment for grades they deemed unsatisfactory. She realized, with the help of some self-reflection and talks with her sister, that she was unconsciously repeating those patterns with Johnny. This revelation didn't excuse her actions, but it helped me understand where she was coming from. I shared my concerns about her actions and how they had affected not just Johnny, but the entire family dynamic. We agreed that we needed to work on our communication as a couple and as co-parents. After our talk, Carla came home. We had a family meeting where she apologized to Johnny for taking his console. Johnny was initially reluctant to even be in the same room as Carla, but he listened to her apology. Carla explained her reasoning, acknowledging that it was wrong and promising to respect his belongings in the future. She also committed to discussing any concerns with both Johnny and me before taking action. Johnny didn't forgive her immediately, which I think is understandable. But he did say he appreciated her honesty and would try to work on their relationship. It was a small step, but an important one. We also established some new family rules. Major decisions about the kids would be discussed between Carla and me first. We would have regular family meetings to air out any issues before they became big problems. Each child would have designated one-on-one time with each parent to strengthen individual relationships. Things were starting to look up, but then another issue arose. A few days after our family meeting, Johnny came to me privately. He was hesitant at first, but eventually revealed that this wasn't the first time Carla had taken or hidden his things without permission. He mentioned several incidents over the past year where his clothes, books, and even his phone had mysteriously disappeared, only to reappear days later. He hadn't mentioned it before because he thought he was just being forgetful or messy. But after the console incident, he started to see a pattern. This revelation shook me to my core. It suggested a pattern of behavior from Carla that was deeply concerning. I felt a mix of guilt for not noticing and anger at Carla for repeatedly violating Johnny's privacy and trust. I confronted Carla about this, and her reaction surprised me. Instead of becoming defensive, she broke down completely. Through her tears, she admitted that she had indeed been doing this for a while. She claimed it was her misguided way of trying to get Johnny to be more responsible and organized. As she spoke, I could see she was genuinely distressed. She talked about feeling like she was failing as a stepmother, unable to connect with Johnny no matter what she tried. In her mind, these actions were attempts to guide him, but she now realized how misguided and harmful they were. I'm at a loss now. While I appreciate Carla's honesty, I'm struggling to trust her. Every time I think about these repeated violations of Johnny's privacy and trust, I feel a surge of protective anger. At the same time, seeing Carla's genuine remorse and distress makes me want to find a way to work through this. Johnny, upon learning that I confronted Carla, seemed to feel a mix of validation and increased wariness. He told me he wants to believe Carla is sorry, but he's not ready to trust her yet. He's now even more resistant to building a relationship with her, which I can't blame him for. The twins are confused and worried about what this means for our family. They've been having whispered conversations that stop when any of us enter the room. I'm concerned about how all of this uncertainty and tension is affecting them. I've suggested family counseling, believing we need professional help to navigate this situation. But Carla is resistant to the idea. She thinks we can work things out on our own, that bringing in an outsider will only make things worse. I'm not so sure. I feel like we're in over our heads and could really use some guidance. I love my wife, but I also need to protect my son. I'm considering taking some time apart to think things through, but I'm worried about how that will affect the kids. They've already been through so much upheaval. I find myself lying awake at night, replaying moments from the past few years, wondering if there were signs I missed. Could I have prevented this if I'd been more attentive? How do I move forward in a way that's fair to everyone? Any advice on how to navigate this complicated situation would be appreciated. How do I balance my responsibilities as a husband and as a father when they seem to be in conflict? How can I help my children, especially Johnny, feel safe and respected in their own home? And is there a way to rebuild trust, or have we passed a point of no return? Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and things have taken an unexpected turn. After much discussion and a few more incidents of tension at home, I finally put my foot down about family counseling. I told Carla that it wasn't a request anymore, but a requirement if we wanted to move forward as a family. Reluctantly, she agreed. We found a therapist who specializes in blended families and started weekly sessions. The first few were incredibly tense. Johnny was mostly silent, the twins were nervous, and Carla was defensive. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to be honest about my concerns without alienating Carla further. During our second session, the counselor suggested individual sessions for each family member in addition to our group sessions. We all agreed, thinking it might help us express things we were hesitant to say in front of each other. It was in Carla's individual session that something shocking came to light. The counselor, bound by professional ethics, didn't reveal the specifics to me but strongly advised Carla to share what she had discussed. The counselor emphasized that this information was crucial for our family's healing process. That evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Carla asked to talk to me privately. She was visibly nervous, her hands shaking as she sat down across from me at our kitchen table. Then, she revealed something I never saw coming. She had been struggling with kleptomania for years. This compulsive urge to steal had been the real reason behind her taking Johnny's things, as well as small items from stores and even friends' houses. She had been too ashamed to admit it and had been trying to handle it on her own. As Carla spoke, so many small incidents over the years suddenly made sense: missing items around the house, her reluctance to let me handle her purse, her anxiety in stores. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, shock at this revelation, sympathy for her struggle, and also hurt that she had kept this secret for so long. Carla broke down as she told me about her struggles. She had first developed this compulsion in her teens as a way to cope with her strict upbringing. The rush of taking something without getting caught became her way of exerting control in a life where she felt she had none. Over the years, she had periods where she thought she had it under control, only for the urges to return during times of stress. The incident with Johnny's gaming console had been a wake-up call for her. She realized she couldn't keep hiding this problem, especially now that it was affecting our children. She admitted that her issues with Johnny had exacerbated her condition, as the stress of their strained relationship often triggered her urges. I was glad Carla had finally opened up, but I was also overwhelmed. This wasn't just about parenting disagreements anymore, it was a mental health issue that affected our entire family dynamic. I felt unprepared to deal with something of this magnitude. We decided to tell the kids a simplified version of the truth. We explained that Carla had a condition that sometimes made her take things without meaning to, and that she was getting help for it. The twins were confused but supportive. Kim asked a lot of questions, trying to understand, while Zoe quietly offered to help in any way she could. Johnny, however, was angry. He felt betrayed that this had been going on for so long without anyone telling him. He stormed off to his room after our family discussion, slamming the door. When I went to check on him later, he was sitting on his bed, tears in his eyes. "Why didn't she trust us enough to tell us?" he asked. I didn't have a good answer for him. Carla has started seeing a therapist who specializes in kleptomania and impulse control disorders. She's also attending support group meetings. I'm doing my best to support her, but I'm also focused on rebuilding trust with Johnny and making sure the twins are coping okay. We're taking things day by day. Some days are better than others. Carla is working hard on her recovery, and I'm proud of her for that. But there's still a long road ahead of us. Last week, she came home from a shopping trip and immediately confessed that she had taken a small keychain without paying. While it was disappointing, her honesty and immediate confession were steps in the right direction. I'm struggling with my own feelings too. While I want to support Carla, I also feel angry and hurt that this secret had been kept from me for so long. I'm in individual counseling to work through these emotions. It's helping, but there are still moments when I feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of what we're dealing with. Our family counseling sessions are continuing, and we're slowly making progress. Johnny has started to open up more in the sessions, expressing his hurt and anger but also asking questions about Carla's condition. It's a small step, but an important one. The twins are showing remarkable resilience. They've become protective of their mother, often reminding her of coping strategies when they notice she's stressed. It's heartwarming to see, but we're also careful to ensure they don't feel responsible for managing Carla's condition. But I can't help wondering what other surprises might be lurking around the corner. How do we move forward from here? How do I help my children, especially Johnny, process this information and rebuild their relationship with Carla? And how do I balance supporting my wife's recovery while also maintaining boundaries to protect our family? Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have progressed. The journey hasn't been easy, but we're slowly finding our way forward as a family. Carla has been committed to her treatment. She's been consistently attending therapy sessions and support group meetings. Her therapist introduced her to cognitive behavioral techniques and meditation practices to help manage her urges. While she's had a few slips, she's been honest about them and is showing real progress. Johnny has struggled the most with this revelation. He felt betrayed and angry, not just at Carla but also at me for not realizing what was happening. We've had many long, difficult conversations. I've apologized for not being more aware and have promised to always prioritize his well-being. Slowly, he's starting to open up again. One breakthrough came when Johnny decided to attend a support group meeting for families affected by kleptomania. He was hesitant at first, but after some encouragement from his individual therapist, he agreed to give it a try. Hearing stories from other teens who had parents with similar struggles helped him understand that this wasn't about him, and that Carla's actions weren't personal attacks. After the meeting, Johnny and I had a heart-to-heart. He admitted that while he was still hurt, he was beginning to understand Carla's struggle better. He even expressed some admiration for her courage in facing her problem head-on. It was a small step, but it felt like a turning point. The twins have been surprisingly resilient. They've become protective of their mother, often reminding her of coping strategies when they notice she's stressed. Kim has taken to leaving encouraging notes around the house, while Zoe has been researching kleptomania and sharing what she learns with the family. It's heartwarming to see, but we're also careful to ensure they don't feel responsible for managing Carla's condition. As for me, I've been on an emotional roller coaster. There are days when I feel optimistic about our future, and others when I'm overwhelmed by the challenges we face. My individual counseling sessions have been crucial in helping me process these feelings. We've made some practical changes at home too. We've implemented a system where Carla voluntarily empties her pockets and bag when she comes home. It's not about policing her, but rather a way for her to hold herself accountable and build trust. We've also started a new family tradition of sharing our daily struggles and victories, which has brought us closer. There have been setbacks. Last month, Carla had a relapse and took some makeup from a store. Instead of hiding it, she immediately confessed to her support group and to us. While it was disappointing, her honesty and quick action to correct the situation were significant steps forward. Johnny recently told me that while he's not ready to fully trust Carla yet, he's willing to try rebuilding their relationship. They've started having weekly one-on-one time, usually playing board games or cooking together. It's a small step, but an important one. Looking back, I realize how complex family dynamics can be. What started as a conflict over a gaming console unveiled deep-seated issues that we're now addressing head-on. It's been painful and challenging, but also transformative. We're not out of the woods yet. Carla's recovery is ongoing, and rebuilding trust takes time. But for the first time in months, I feel cautiously optimistic about our future as a family. We're learning to communicate better, to support each other through difficulties, and to face our problems together rather than letting them drive us apart. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and encouragement have been invaluable. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that family challenges, no matter how daunting, can be overcome with honesty, commitment, and love.